First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to that man right there. He does the best job of herding cats I've ever seen and getting speakers up here. He's the greatest ever on that. Okay, last time I was here, one person had been to Antarctica. Who's been? Who was it? It was a lady that was sitting over here. Has anybody been there? Could be. Nice one. Oh my goodness. This trip was just over the top. Let me set the stage here. Where the heck is Antarctica? Well, it's 8,400 miles as a crow flies, James, from Stillwater, our town, America. And it took me 4 airplane rides and a cruise boat to get there. Now, I've been to New Zealand and Australia, which are farther, but this one took a lot of effort. It's the 5th largest continent. We have 7 continents for those that need help. It's number 5, and it's 40% bigger than Europe and twice as big almost as Australia. 95% of it's covered by ice. 5% is raw land. And most of the land is underwater because of the ice. The ice is 1.2 miles thick, which sinks the land. But you don't know that because the ice is on top of it. It's actually a polar desert. That sounds weird, doesn't it? That's kind of contradictory. The coast gets the most precipitation, 8 inches a year in the form of snow. The interior is lucky to get 2 inches a year. So, who goes down there? Last year, about 125,000 people made the journey, tourist people. But 5,000 people are there in the summertime all the time. Who are those people? Scientists. 7 countries pretty much run the whole continent, but actually there's 60. It's a very, very complicated thing down there, but they wanted to keep it all pristine as much as they could, so they really, really watched that situation down there as far as coming and going. The U.S. has the largest contingency of scientists on the south part of, it's called the Ross Ice Shelf, on the south part of the continent, and they have, in the summertime, about 4,000 people there. New Zealand and Chile are the only 2 countries that keep people there 12 months a year. Because you can fly in there, which we did, from about the first part of November until the 1st of March. However, that's sketchy, and I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. So the other 9 months, everything has to come in by sea, by air, because the sea is frozen up. Most common question I've gotten since I've got back is, this is an interesting one, did you get cold down there? Yeah, but the reality was, quick answer was yes. But the reality is I get cold in Oklahoma too, and it was about the same as Stillwater, kind of. With the wind as a factor down there. Of course, we all know the wind's always a factor here. The coldest temperature ever recorded down there was 129 degrees below zero. The wind, the strongest wind they've ever recorded down there was 200 miles an hour. The wind is an incredible factor down there. So who's been down there in the last 125 years? Well, the first people that really made inroads were the British in 1909. It was discovered, the geographic pole was discovered by the Norwegian Amundsen in 1911. He beat everybody else. It was a big race to the pole. Ross was down there too, and of course, Ernest Shackleton had his incredible trip, which, folks, I'm not a reader. Medical school burnt me out on that. But I have started in my second life here to read more, and I read about Ernest Shackleton. I did some research before I went to Antarctica. And Ernest Shackleton, for those that know anything about it, it's incredible what happened with him. He was going to cross the continent because the geographic and the pole had already been reached, so that claim to fame was gone. He tried to do that, and he was beat by the Norwegian. So now he's going to go from east to west and cross the continent, which he didn't do, but what he did do was beyond historical. He and 28 men got their ship stuck, the Endurance, in ice down there. And there's wonderful books on this. And I read the one, of course, with print this big. And he managed to save every single one of those people, 28 of them, for 22 months down there. And you couldn't call 911 or go to Quick Trip. It was unbelievable what that man and his people went through, but mostly him. He was the impetus for all those people surviving. And I'm jumping ahead of myself here a little bit. On this particular ship that we were on going down there, they gave a excellent talk on him, on what all he did in his lifetime and whatever. If you're readers, you need to read about Ernest Shackleton and what he able to accomplish down there. Okay, now let's talk specifically about our trip. My bride and I, she was actually the impetus for this trip, which is very unusual because I'm the driver of that train, and she jokingly, seriously tells people all I do is find out where we're going and start packing. So this one was hers, though. She wanted to go down there. And to be really honest with you, we almost timed out age-wise, okay? So those of you that are considering doing something like this, you need to check your driver's license and see where you are in the mix, because there were 200 people on this vessel that we were on, 200 passengers, also 200 crew members, which is highly unusual. Usually it's 4 passengers to 1 crew member, but this, because of the support that's needed down there for this thing, had to have that many people. And Debbie Breedlove and I were in the top 5% age-wise. If we'd have waited 2 or 3 more years, I'm not sure we could have done it, because that's all that's required for that. Now, we've been on one other expedition cruise. That's what this cruise was. That's not go to Jamaica and lay on the beach and have them bringing you out drinks with umbrellas. It's not that. Expedition cruises are cruises that have come into vogue really strongly the last 10 years because the planet is shrinking. The competition is great out there on cruise ships, and people like us, this was our 81st, not that a lot have that, but a lot of people are even more than we are. They've been everywhere almost, so they want to go to new places, so they have these expedition cruises. And these are no casino, no dancing boys, no dancing girls. The liveliest thing was bingo, and I won 3 times, and I haven't played bingo since I was in high school. Maybe I didn't even play it then. But it's totally about cruising. You have lectures by learned people during the daytime, and you're focused on that. It is, again, the food was okay. It's good food, good cruise line, and but it's about the place. And it's very similar to the Galapagos Islands. People been to the Galapagos Islands in here? No one? We went there about 20 years ago. It's also expedition, where you get to the island and you're off in zodiacs. So I'm getting ahead of myself just for a few minutes here. Got to speed this up. So we fly down there, and we're at Punta Arenas, Chile, which is the point where we're going to catch the other airplane to go to King George Island in the Shetland Islands and get on the cruise ship. There are 4 ways you can see Antarctica. Actually 5 if you want to fly over in an airplane and just see it. But if you want to be on a ship, there's 4 ways, and this is all developed in the last 10 years due to competition. The old way, this started in the 80s, you cruise down there and then you cruise back. You cruise through the Drake Passage, which is the most treacherous sea on Earth. The waves are sometimes can be 50 feet high. 36 hours to get across from South America to King George Island or to Antarctica, then 36 hours back. So you can cruise both ways. You can fly one way and cruise back. You can cruise down and fly back, or you can fly both ways. Robert Breedlove was fly both ways. So was Debbie Breedlove. Okay, she wanted to do Drake Passage experience, which there's you know those bags that they have in airplanes with you get motion sickness. We did cruise back, and I'll get to that in just a half second. And those bags were everywhere on the ship, and I think they were being used a lot. Okay, and those were only with 10-foot waves on our passing. So this fly, which we did, the problem with that is called weather. And guess what? Weather sets up shop down there unbelievably quick. And if those charter jets don't have visibility for 4 hours, a window for 4 hours because there's 4 jets, they don't do it. So we got to Punta Arenas, Chile, and we're ready to go fly to King George Island and get on our cruise ship. Can't do it day 1, can't do it day 2, now we're at day 3. If day 3 wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be sitting up here telling you about Antarctica because they just sent us home. Okay? And that's happened more times than the cruise companies like to think. And that's a huge loss for them because, no surprise here, it's not cheap to go to Antarctica. Okay? So we did get to go down. It cleared. We went down. You land on a gravel runway in King George Island. It's a very short runway, too, with these, I think they're not 707s, but they're jet aircraft, and they're chartered. And then the Zodiac meets you, and you get on the Zodiac, and you go out to your cruise ship. What's a Zodiac? Anybody know Zodiacs? Jacques Cousteau made those famous way back in the day. And these are specially equipped to go across the ice. And I got to tell you one quick story before I'm through up here about that. But so you get on the Zodiac, then you go to the cruise ship. What do you do on the cruise ship? So you have an AM and a PM trip. You get down, you put on these hazmat outfits that take about, remember I told you this is not for the faint of heart. You put on these hazmat outfits that take you at least 20 minutes to get into it. You got boots on that with your socks only in the boots take your temperature down to minus 20. And I can tell you my feet never got cold in Antarctica. But it's like it's like a drunk. I look like a penguin trying to walk, as did others. But my age had something to do with that. So you go out in these Zodiacs. You load up in the Zodiacs, 10 to a Zodiac, 5 on each side, with a driver guide with a 60 horsepower Honda engine, and you go out and do your thing. You do that in the morning, and then you do that in the afternoon. And at noontime, the captain of the cruise ship, small ship, again, 200 people, moves to a different location. Sometimes the Zodiac only stays in the water for the hour and 15 minutes that you're out there. Sometimes it lands on Antarctica, and you get off, and you're guided through whatever you're seeing out there, whether it's the penguins, the seals, the whales that are offshore. It's just unbelievable. And I've been to Iceland, and I've been to Greenland, and I've been to Alaska 10 times. Antarctica with the ice, there is no comparison. With the icebergs and just the scenery is just spectacular, as long as you don't get lost. So that's what you do. Now let me give you one little episode of a little bit of excitement. At the time, it was a little bit more than excitement. Okay, we're on an afternoon expedition, and I wrote about this. It just hadn't been in the paper yet. So we're with a young guide. She's about 26, and she's about this tall, and I'm not a very tall guy. But they're competent. They know what they're doing. And there's 25 Zodiacs off this cruise ship. 10 of them are with passengers, and the other 10 are safety Zodiacs. Safety is an incredible thing down there. They don't want you to have trouble. That water is 27 degrees. Why is it 27? Because it's salt water, okay? Which I want to mention too, which I didn't mention above, 70% of the world's fresh water is held down there, and if it all melted long after we're no longer around, it would raise the sea level 200 feet. That's how much water is down there. So we're out in this Zodiac with this gal, and she gets a radio thing saying, hey, there's a leopard seal that's made a kill on a penguin. Anybody know leopard seal? Or is that just, you think that's just another creature, which it is? Well, it's an apex predator down there. The other apex predator is called the orca, which we've all heard is killer whales. Well, killer whale eats everything, including the leopard seal. The leopard seal eats everything else. So this leopard, and the females can get to be 12 feet long and weigh well over a ton. They're huge compared to the other seals down there. And so that's made a kill, and so it said, let's go over and see it. Okay, fine. So we start over here. Now there's ice everywhere, and we're in this outboard with 10 of us. And all of a sudden, the motor starts smoking. And we go, okay, well, she shuts it down. She calls for safety. I told you they're so geared for safety. Safety is over here, not the next zip code. He's close enough. He's coming towards us, okay? So she raises the outboard engine, and it's covered with ice because she's been going across the ice, okay? Most of the time it doesn't happen, but it did happen. Lo and behold, on the expedition sitting next to Debbie Breedlove is a guy that spent 20 years, this wasn't planned, in the U.S. Army teaching survival training. And he's a passenger on our ship. And so there's a gaff on there. It's from me to Chris, and he takes that gaff off the side of it. The motor's in the air, and he knocks off enough ice, as much as that table there practically, and clears the motor, and we start running again. Well, in the meantime, this whole time that this is happening, we're drifting over closer to the leopard seal. And leopard seals have been pretty documented in the past to eat anything. Anything would be humans too. In fact, one of Shackleton's guy almost got eaten by one. The orcas and the leopard seals hide below the ice. They look up. If they can see something that looks like food, they burst through the ice and come after you. And that's what happened to Shackleton. And if there hadn't been a guy with a gun to shoot that leopard seal, that guy would have been the one that Shackleton lost, eaten by the leopard seal. So the whole time that we're having trouble with this motor, we're getting closer and closer and closer to the leopard seal, who's on a small floe of ice with the remains of the penguin and a bunch of birds that are picking that stuff up also, okay? And we get 20 yards from the leopard seal, and the leopard seal obviously knows we're there and is looking around at us like, I don't know if I'm full or I'm not full. And so, but she gets it started, the motor goes in there, and we get out of there. So the story's a good story, but I'm thinking, local Stillwater people get consumed by leopard seal in Antarctica. I don't know how that headline would make it. So I look and see how far we've got to go, because this whole thing took a little time, and we're still about a mile from the mothership, and there's nothing but ice between here and there, okay? Well, we do make it through. The safety people stay with us. We're the last one to get there. And again, my wife would tell you that I embellished a lot of this. I didn't embellish it, folks. Debbie, I didn't embellish it. No, that's the way it happened. And you know, how scary was that? I don't know. I mean, here's a kid from Stillwater that thinks his leopard seal's a real thing, and he's right there. So anyway, that was his experience with that. Animals, yeah, we saw a lot. Had a whale come right out of the water 20 feet from our Zodiac one time. We saw 3 kinds of penguins: Adelie, chinstrap, and Genitou. And I love penguins. They're so neat, and they've got almost no fear down there because they don't know who you are. You know, there's very few humans down there. Also, lots of birds. You know, the tern comes down there. The Arctic tern, that's quite a creature. Flies from the North Pole to the South Pole to the North Pole. Does 44,000 miles a year in the air. This bird does. Holy cow. And all kinds of whales. The only other thing I could tell you is, would I do it again? Yeah, I'd do it again. But it's not for the faint of heart. I don't know if I've driven people off up here or if I've attracted people. There are about 5 vendors that offer the fly like what I did. Silver Seas, who we were with, Quark, Seabourn, Lindblad, and Ponant is another cruise company. A lot of them go down there and turn around and go back. You can't land. If the cruise vessel is over 500 passengers, you can't land in Antarctica. And they'll only let 100 people land at one time. That's why our cruise ship of 200 passengers, it was divided into half here and half there, because it had to meet, there's a lot of requirements you got to meet. And when you come back off the land and stuff, you have to go through disinfectant with your feet, and they're really, really trying hard. But the world, as I said earlier, is sinking with travel stuff, and the demand is going up, and the competition's going up. So I don't know, but I'm glad that we went down there. Didn't have an abundance of questions. I don't know if I was so forceful that I scared you all off or what.
So good. Who has questions? Yeah, hang on. The mics are coming.
Okay.
So how long were you actually on the continent of Alaska?
In Antarctica. What I didn't do,
Antarctica.
I was rushing
not
here.
Alaska.
We were actually there 7 days. We should have been there 4 days. I told you about the delay to get there that almost didn't happen. I'll fill in the last blanks here. So at day 3 of the delay of getting back, so the same thing happened. We're on the ship, and now we're supposed to go back to Chile and fly back to the real world, okay? Can't. Weather's bad. Delay day 1, delay day 2, delay 3. They come on and say, look, Royal Caribbean owns Silversea. They're a subsidiary, okay? So Royal Caribbean put their heads together and said, there's 2 cruises after yours. People are waiting in Punta Arenas, Chile, to come down and get on your ship when you get off. We're sending them home. And the cruise after that, which is the last one of the year in early March, they're not ever coming. We're canceling both of those. And you're cruising back to Chile. So my wife got her wish to go across the Drake Passage, and it was an experience for a day and a half. And we got certificates that we survived it. That's what they give out, those things. That water. My sister did that 25 years ago before they landed down there. She just went down and back into Antarctica on a cruise ship. And they actually, at nighttime, they braced her in her berth so that she wouldn't fall off. If you look in the dining room, all the chairs they're all braced. And so you ask the dining room people about it, it's because of the Drake Passage. Yeah. So we were there 7 days. We should have been there 5.
Another question over here.
You answered most of the question. When you say the weather's bad, what do you mean?
Visibility. It's all about visibility. The jet aircraft have to have 400 feet of clear space to land on that gravel runway in King George Island. If they can't get 400 clear space, they don't land. And the Chilean government controls that because that's their outpost. Chile, I told you there's 50 countries that have stuff, and Chile's a strong down because of the proximity geographically. If they can't get it, they can't land. So it's all about the landing part. It's not about the taking off part. So bad in the sense I'm sure it got horrible weather all the time without the visibility issues, but this is visibility because of the aircraft. Yeah.
Over here.
Yes.
So you mentioned the dangers. So over the years of visitors, how many tourists have actually been killed?
Great question. In the cruising part, I don't know of any. In 1979, Air New Zealand, for those that are birthdays are down there with me, you might remember this. Air New Zealand, who still provides flyovers. You can fly from Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, etc. for 10 to 12 hours, fly over Antarctica, and then fly back to Australia. Well, they started that stuff in the early 60s. In 1979, due to pilot error, which is almost always the case in aviation, the aircraft hit the active volcano, Mount Erebus there on Antarctica is an active volcano that today is erupting 10 times per day in real time. This aircraft hit that, this flyover aircraft with tourists in it in 1979, hit it and killed 279 people, killed everybody. Well, Air New Zealand said, no more, but then after time, they picked it up again. So they don't let enough people actually, you can go down there as an individual and camp and hike and whatever, but you have to go through miles of red tape, and it's very few people. So other than the cruise ships and the flyovers and the scientists are there, not travelers, they're working on scientific stuff, but it is really closely regulated, and the safety is incredible. I mean, every ship has safety stuff, and we've been on a lot of them, but this one is incredibly that way. And if you vary off of it, they call you out as passengers.
All right. Thank you to
Okay.
Dr. Breedlove today.